Hello, students of ED 199 SEC 01 Fall 2020 Exploring Educator Identity class. Today, I have the true honor of bringing you a great interview with Tommy Mascari, a teacher who has 22 years of experience.
Thanks, Keenan. I really appreciate you having me.
For those of you that aren't familiar with Tommy's work, Tommy Mascari is a kinesiology teacher and assistant basketball coach at Guerin Catholic High School in Noblesville, Indiana. Tommy graduated from Ball State in December of 1998 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Health and Physical Education. Tommy started his career at Culver Military Academy, where he worked for 10 years, and is now at Guerin Catholic, where he's been for the last 12 years. He is also a basketball coach, and his teams have won 3 state championships. So we'll just hop right into this interview, if that's okay with you, Tommy.
Yeah, sounds great.
What made you decide to become a teacher?
You know, I get that question a lot. The first time I was asked that question was back in college, and a professor asked us why, everybody in the class, why did you want to be teachers? And I go, I got this answer. So I raised my hand, and then the professor goes, don't say because of June, July, and August, because you got the summer months off. So then I put my hand down because that was going to be my answer, because I thought, hey, this is going to be great. I can only work 9 months out of the year. But then I realized that's not why I wanted to be a teacher, because you get summers off, because now obviously you don't really get the summers off, because I teach summer school. But really it was to have an impact on young people's lives and be able to make a difference in their lives. And I really started with coaching. So I started coaching when I was in college as just kind of a way to make money. And then once I got to work with young student athletes, then I realized that this was something I enjoyed doing. So then the coaching just kind of led me into the teaching, and the two kind of go hand in hand. And I just I enjoy watching young people grow and mature, and then see them develop over a course of 4 years. And I hope that I'm having a positive impact on their lives while I either have them as an athlete on the basketball team, or whether it's a student in one of my courses.
Let's go back to 1999. Your first couple of years teaching at Culver. And obviously coaching. Can you describe kind of what type of technology was used in the classroom when you first started?
Yeah, at Culver Military Academy, our students even back then did have access to laptops, so they had laptops with them in the classroom. We had, as teachers, we just used an overhead projector or an old, we even still had chalkboards at the time when I first started teaching, and then we end up with the dry erase boards. So we did have overhead projectors that we used. I remember early on in my career, we started with like PowerPoint presentations. That was pretty popular at the time. And then it really just started with, it was we did lecturing, and there's a little bit of research that was being done. We had a really great library on campus. So still most of the information the students would get would be from books in the library. They would use the internet a little bit for their research and to get information, but it was still the old-fashioned way of going to library, researching, finding books and things like that. But then as I got halfway through my career there at Culver, then we started using more of the internet. With basketball, I would videotape the games. We'd watch film, so I would have somebody film our games, and then we would we'd review the film. But that's really advanced from now, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about how things have changed over the years. But really, it was just filming things. We didn't do a whole lot other than just review and watch the film, but that's definitely improved over the years as well.
Yeah, you clearly read my mind, because my next question was, what has changed the most with technology since you used, like, the stuff you used in the beginning of your teaching coaching career to now?
Well, it's really amazing, especially in this COVID era. We've been able to have class all of last spring and even here into the early part of this school year by using Zoom. I mean, that's been huge. At Guerin Catholic, our students also have laptops, so that's really nice. But the biggest things we've been able to do is communication's a lot better, because you can communicate to the students through laptops by use of email or by Zooming. Even with Twitter accounts and things like that, we're able to get information to the students. And then obviously the students are able to use the technology by, finding information on the internet. And I mean, we can ask a question in class, and if nobody knows the answer, someone can Google it real quick, and you have access to that information right away. Where, like I said, 20 years ago, someone would have to go to the library and find a book and try and find that answer. So it's improved our communication with our students, and it's also improved how the students are able to find information. And like I said, with the Zoom technology now, we're able to still have classes, even though when we're not able to all be together.
Obviously, there's been a lot of increase in technology. Do you think that's improved students' learning? If you could just elaborate on that, maybe.
I think it depends on the student. I think it's definitely helped some of our students with their learning. I still think it's best for us to all try and be in person as much as we can, and then use technology as a way to enhance that learning. I would much rather be in a situation where the students are in my class, and then we're using that technology to support whatever's going on in the classroom, instead of just having them like at home in front of their computer all the time. But no, I think every student's different. Some students learn better when you just give them an assignment or a task and they can go do it on their own. Other students really need to have the instructor or teacher there to help guide them through that. So I think it just depends on the student. But I do think that the technology overall does help all students in some way.
Absolutely. Do you think, whenever COVID ends, that Zoom classes will still be a thing? And do you think that, obviously you've said you think it's still better to be in person, but do you think that's an option that's at the same level as in person, or not?
Yeah, I think now that we got the capability to use Zoom, like in every one of our classrooms at Guerin Catholic, what we did is we've all got our own, it's a large screen TV that they installed in everyone's classroom. So then I can have my students in Zoom on that television while I've got my students in school, because we're doing the hybrid model right now where kids are only coming to school every other day. So I can still be instructing the whole class at once. So for maybe students, for whatever reason, if they can't get to school on a particular day, they might be able to Zoom in, even if I do have my whole class there, but to help them maybe keep up on things. Even if it's, let's say you have a student that maybe for my class, or any class, they have an injury or they're having a surgery where they're going to be out and they can't come to school for whatever reason, then they could keep up on their schoolwork by Zooming in, and they're not going to get too far behind. So I think that there is a place for Zoom in the future. It's just, I hope that it's not going to be, everybody Zooming in all the time like what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's something, especially for younger children, even children in high school, to where the personal connections you make, and dealing with people that you might not necessarily enjoy, or people that are different from you, and still having to figure out how to work it out. I think that's equally as valuable to the child. It's not so much the knowledge, it's it's how to learn the things like that, and I think you lose a portion of that if it's online. But I think it's smart to have Zoom stick around in a capacity like that, to where some class is better than no class.
Yep.
So an issue that at least I have with Zoom classes is when I'm not in the room, it's easy for me to turn my camera off and, I don't know, maybe play my roommate in 2K.
Mm-hmm.
How do you combat that in your classes, to where you make sure those people are paying attention and they're at least getting some of the information?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point you bring up. What I ask my students to do is when they do Zoom in, I ask them to turn their camera on, and I need to see them face to face on the camera. So I do know that at least they're there. I can see that they're there, because I know it would be easy for them to shut that camera off, to mute themselves, and go do whatever else they want to do. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just require my students, when we are Zooming, that they need to have the camera on. I need to see that they're there. And then that way I know that hopefully they're going to be engaged in the class.
Interesting. How have you had to change your teaching style to mold with the new technology?
Believe it or not, the way that our class is conducted with the kinesiology class that I teach at Guerin Catholic, I only have them in the classroom for about 25 minutes, and that's when we do our health information or lesson. And then for the other half of the class, 25 minutes or so, is when we do our physical component of the course. So when I have them in a classroom, a lot of it is lecture because it's a quick lesson. So when we had to go to the Zoom, I just have, the kids that are home are Zooming in, and I'm sharing my screen on my computer with them at home, and they're able to follow along while I'm giving them the information or the notes, while the students in the classroom are taking the same notes. So really it has, other than me learning how to use the technology itself and the new TV screen and it's called like a vision board or smart board, and then learning how to use Zoom, I haven't really had to change how I actually kind of conduct my course, other than just me learning the technology and making sure that students know how to log in and things like that.
So obviously things are going to be different from like a day-to-day. You're going to have to make adjustments, just like during COVID, where you're going to have to learn how to use Zoom. How do you make those changes on a day-to-day basis in your classroom?
Well, what we try to do is, with our students, we try to figure out what the best way to give them the information is going to be. So like I said, in our class, it's a lot of kind of lecture, just because it's a short time that I have them actually in the classroom. And then, like I said, we go do the physical activity. So really, I think that we've always done a nice job of being flexible and trying to adapt, with different situations. Really, it's just going to be all about what's going to be the best way for us to provide the information to the students the best way that we can. And, I think the students have done a really great job this year and even last spring adapting to change, because this isn't maybe the best way for students to learn. I mean, I know, I'm sure you'd rather be going to class every day and being around, your classmates and your professors instead of doing the Zooms and different things. So I think students have done a nice job, adapting. So everyone's just got to be flexible in what we're doing, and everyone's just trying to do the best that they can to try and get through this situation. Hopefully, in the future we can get back to what we, our old normal used to be.
Absolutely. I know for me personally, I'm definitely more of an in-person guy, but sometimes life just hands you a card that we all have to deal with, and it's unfortunate. Jumping off kind of that idea of dealing with adversity, that is something that's talked about a lot in sports, and I know you have 3 state titles under your belt. Did you notice anything different from those 3 state championship teams, like the way that they approached their practice, talent? Like, what do you think it was that made those 3 teams so special?
It was the players. We had really good players.
Yeah.
I mean, our coaching staff was solid, but it was the support from the parents was fantastic. But our players were great. On all those state championship teams, we had guys that did play at the next level in college, whether it was Division I or down to Division III. But it was the players, and it was the leadership of the seniors. So the seniors were the ones that led all those teams, and then they just kind of paved the way for the underclassmen and just the work ethic. But I would give all the credit to the players and to the seniors, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of those 3 state championships, and I can't thank those guys enough.
Absolutely. A lot of coaches will say the way your team's going to be the most successful is, like you said, with seniors that provide leadership. How do you make it so they can take leadership and own it without having it turn into a situation where they might do something that contradicts what you guys are doing? How are you guys able to give them the reins to take leadership?
Well, the good coaches I've been able to be an assistant coach for, like Pete Smith and Jason Groves, and now with Coach Bobby Allen at Guerin Catholic, those guys would have meetings with the upperclassmen and regularly meet with the seniors and the captains, and let the seniors know this is what our goals are, this is our objective, this is what we would like to see, and then you just got to kind of get those guys on the same page with the coaching staff. And then with the weight room, you get the guys in the weight room. When you have your off-season stuff, you have your seniors kind of lead that stuff, and then the coaches kind of take a back seat and see how it goes. You can do certain drills in practice where, again, you let as a coach, maybe you wait and see if a senior is going to say something before you jump in and say something as a coach. So I think a lot of it is just communication between the coaching staff and the head coach especially with their captains or their senior leaders, and just making sure everybody's on the same page. I'll give you a good example. In our 2015 state championship, we weren't playing real well in January, and there's nobody that probably thought we were going to be a state championship team. And then about halfway through the season, the guys we all weren't on the same page. And the team, after one of our games, we had a bad loss against a team that we probably should have beaten. And then the team stayed for about an hour to an hour and a half after the game, and we're in the locker room, and they just had a team meeting. And then we brought the captains in the next day, and then they shared with us what happened during that team meeting. And it was at that point that the guys kind of took ownership of the team, and then we were able to get on the same page. And well, I mean, we didn't lose very many games after that. And once we hit the tournament, obviously we didn't lose any games.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was just kind of one of those situations where once the guys were all able to kind of figure it out and everybody was able to come together, it just made for a great year.
Yeah. Obviously, when you win a state championship, it's definitely a special moment. So my final question for you today is, what advice would you give to college students who are just starting the journey to becoming a teacher?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I just think you got to be patient. You got to be willing to. You got to ask questions. You got to be willing to learn something new every day. You have to work on your communication skills, and you got to be a really good communicator because you're going to have to be able to communicate with other teachers. You're going to have to be able to communicate with your students, with parents. So communication, I think, is a real key, really, in any relationship that you're going to have. Try to learn something new every day. Be flexible. You have to be flexible. I mean, in this time that we're in right now, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen when you go to a faculty or staff meeting, and then the administration is going to throw something at you, and you just got to be like, well, that's not what I was planning on doing this week, but you got to be able to just kind of roll with the flow, go with the flow a little bit, and be flexible. But teaching's a really noble profession, and it's given me a lot of great joy, or I wouldn't be doing it for 22 years now. But it's definitely when you see the students, go from one point to another point. Like I said, I get freshmen, and then I'll see them again as seniors, and to see that development, it's really something special.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for taking the time to let me interview you.
Yeah. It was my pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.